Coming up on this episode of Omnivore, injecting business savvy into food science curricula, scaling biofortified crops in sub-Saharan Africa, and facing down a demographic cliff in the food science pipeline. It's all ahead on episode 35 of Omnivore from the editors of Food Technology Magazine and the Institute of Food Technologists.
This episode of Omnivore is brought to you by IFT's Career Center. Whether you are looking for a new career opportunity or new talent for your team, IFT's Career Center is the premier destination to help you fill or find a position in the science of food. Visit ift.org/career center to learn more today.
Welcome to Omnivore from IFT and Food Technology, where we explore the intersection of business, science, and technology in the global food system. I'm Bill McDowell. Food scientists who are working in the field increasingly understand that success requires more than just strong technical knowledge. Today's graduates also need to be well-versed in critical business skills, including communication, project management, networking, accounting, data analysis, and more. Food Technology's Associate Editor Emily Little spoke with Chapman University professor Anuradha Prakash about Chapman's dual MS-MBA program and the importance of teaching the well-rounded food scientist.
Anuradha, thank you so much for joining me. I am so excited to talk about Chapman's program.
Thanks for having me.
I want to start off with a general view of this discussion of business skills in food science curriculum. Why do you think it's so important that we build business skills into these programs?
Yeah, thank you for asking that, Emily. I'd like to start off with a definition of food science. Most of us understand that food science is an applied science where we combine the foundational knowledge of the basic sciences such as chemistry, biology, physics, math, engineering to understand food processes and to develop safe, nutritious, sustainable foods. But inherent in this description are some key points, right? Food science requires a foundation in basic science and math, but we need to remember that food is produced from some natural materials, plants and animals. And to be able to process and develop food products requires an understanding of the many factors that affect their quality, their price, their availability. These are factors like the weather, geopolitical issues, supply chain aspects, right? And these are things that we might usually not cover in a food science curriculum. In fact, if you speak to people in the food industry, they say that no 2 days are alike in a manufacturing plant because things change day to day in the quality of the raw material. There are people who make decisions about what to do with that raw material, how to process, what to procure. They need to anticipate changes in price or shortages. On the product development side, they need to pitch new ideas based on consumer needs, or from the manufacturing side, make suggestions to improve efficiencies and reduce costs, right? So these things keep changing every day. And food scientists in a traditional curriculum, they start out with having, all the basic food science courses, and they start work in quality assurance control or R&D. They might interface with personnel in other departments, but it's really as they move up the corporate ladder that their dealings across the organization start to get more meaningful, and they need to have a deeper understanding of those functions. So they will start working a lot more with people in marketing and legal, human resources, or supply chain, right? And so this at this point, it really becomes valuable to have a business background or have these business skills in conjunction with those science skills.
I've only been working for IFT. I'm just coming up on my 2-year anniversary. And in these 2 years, I have learned the food industry might be the most intersectional industry. It touches so many different aspects.
Yeah, and that's, I like to think of the food industry And I tell people who are considering food science as a career, I say that it's a portal into a much wider world. You step through this magic door and this whole world of opportunity opens up to you. And it really, you can take it where you would like it to go, really, whether it's if you want to stay in the scientific side of things, you can have a full career in that, right? But if you wanted to go into sales or marketing or even some of the social aspects of it, right? There's just so much to do in food science.
Right. So you work at Chapman University, go Panthers. So I want to talk a bit specifically about this dual MS MBA program that you offer. Can you give us some details about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So some years ago, I was speaking to our alumni, and I noticed that a number of our alumni from our food science program would come back to Chapman or one of the other local universities and pursue an MBA. And in talking to them, it became clear that they were interested in pursuing that MBA because they felt like they needed those business skills, those management skills to do their jobs better and also to advance their careers. So after speaking to a number of our alumni, we created a dual degree program in which students get both degrees simultaneously. So at the end of this program, they will earn both an MS in food science as well as an MBA. So it's not one combined degree. It's not a professional science degree. It's actually two separate degrees that they're earning. And we worked it out in such a way that the schedules allow them to take classes in both the disciplines. It takes obviously a little bit longer to complete the program, and it adds to the costs, of course. But it's been a really attractive program for people who have some experience already in the food industry and who hope to advance their management position. We've also done a couple of other things. This is the dual degree program, but we've done a couple of other things at Chapman that might be interesting, kind of related to these business skills. Just recently, we started to offer a 2-day leadership course for our master's students. Here, they have a chance to explore their leadership styles, understand strategies to lead change, develop influence and persuasion techniques, how to manage conflicts, develop effective teams. One other thing that we started just this last academic year was a 2-day short course on project management. And that was, again, it's just a tip of an iceberg in 2 days, but gives them a pretty good idea what project management is all about. And that's so important in pretty much every industry.
How are the students responding to these new programs?
We've had really good response from students for actually all of these programs. For the dual degree MS-MBA program, it's usually the food science students who add the MBA. And that's because the MBA does not have any prerequisite requirements, but the MS has, so much science that goes into it, right? So not all MBA students have enough of a science background to pursue a master's in food science. But in speaking to the students while they're in the program, they report that they have so much of a better understanding of aspects such as marketing, costing. They're able to develop both practical skills and, what's important to me is the critical thinking skills, such as, when they have to do a SWOT analysis for a product development project. They have to create Gantt charts and PERT charts. They have to identify risks and develop strategies for growth. In an MBA program, what's interesting as well is they tend to use cases. So it's case-based learning in which real life examples are used, and it really helps the students to hone their skills. And overall, based on surveys that we've done, we find that our alumni who've been through the dual degree program, they improve their quantitative skills, communication, and also their soft skills. They find more opportunities for jobs, and it seems like they're able to advance faster in their careers as well.
So you're creating the well-rounded food scientist.
We hope so.
In your opinion, what more needs to be done in this area so that students are prepared when they enter the workforce?
It would be great if we could have a greater integration of food science and business classes. Right now, the way it's structured, students take separate classes in the food science program and then in the business school. And the professors in the business school, they allow the students to pursue food industry related projects, which is great. But it would be really nice if we were able to offer business classes that were specific to the food industry. For example, crisis management. I think that would be a really valuable one.
Certainly
Or maybe
topical.
absolutely. And, it just seems every time we have a crisis, we talk about it and then it fades away. And then there's the next crisis. It never goes away. There's always going to be one. Also, I teach product development. I would love to be able to offer a year-long class where we combine the business skills along with the technical aspects of product development. And as the world is headed towards more data analytics and AI, I'd like to see a lot more integration of those topics into our food science curriculum. And that's something that we're working on as well.
Anuradha, thank you so much for talking to me and good luck with the rest of the school year.
It's been a pleasure, Emily. Thanks for having me.
Anuradha Prakash is a professor of food science at Chapman University in Orange, California, and science advisor to the FDA Pacific Regional Lab Southwest. You can read more about how academic programs are evolving to meet market needs in the May issue of Food Technology. We'll be back with more Omnivore in a moment, but first, this word from our sponsor.
Are you looking for talented new team members to help you and your organization reach your goals for 2024? IFT wants to make your search easier. Reach our global network of diverse, experienced, and highly engaged individuals by posting in IFT's Career Center. You'll reach a targeted pool of potential future employees with a variety of backgrounds and years of experience to meet your unique talent needs. Learn more and post a job at ift.org/career center. Once again, that's ift.org/career center.
Welcome back to Omnivore. I'm Bill McDowell. 75% of school children in sub-Saharan Africa are impacted by some kind of malnutrition or micronutrient deficiency. The International Food Policy Research Institute launched its HarvestPlus program 20 years ago to scale up production and consumption of biofortified staple foods and crops to contribute to a more nutritious and resilient food system. The organization's work with a school feeding program in Zambia has resulted in more than 100 million people in farming households now eating biofortified crops. Because of these efforts, IFPR was named a grand prize winner in this year's Seeding the Future Global Food System Challenge, receiving $250,000 to scale the program's impact. Food Technology's Kelly Hensel recently spoke with HarvestPlus scaling specialist Katharina Diehl on the organization's work thus far in Zambia and what it hopes to achieve with the prize money over the next decade.
Well, thank you so much, Katharina, for joining us today. And first of all, congratulations on winning the grand prize in the Seeding the Future Global Food Challenge. That's so exciting for you guys. So in order to secure that grand prize, the organization needed to have demonstrated major impact potential to transform the food system, affecting the lives of millions of people. And I was hoping you could talk a little bit about the impact that the International Food Policy Research Institute's HarvestPlus program has already had around the world.
Thanks so much, Kelly. I'm so excited to talk to you today. And yes, so HarvestPlus is a program that is under the umbrella of the International Food Policy Research Institute. And it has been founded 20 years ago with the problem of malnutrition, especially hidden hunger. So malnutrition is not only the deficit of calories, but also micronutrient deficiencies. And we know that, for example, 75% of school children in sub-Saharan Africa are impacted by some kind of malnutrition or micronutrient deficiency even. And this is where HarvestPlus started off. We thought we could let the plants do the work of addressing hidden hunger by breeding crop varieties that have a higher micronutrient content. So we are currently working with over 100 crop varieties that contain more zinc, more iron, or more vitamin A. Overall, the success, I think, of HarvestPlus over the years has been that we have developed high-quality planting materials that get distributed to farmers to grow. Mm-hmm. And we have engaged a lot in developing so-called delivery models. That means we have developed models of how those crops can reach the people that need them most. And from there, the models that work best, we scale up into the value chain, mainly by closing gaps in the supply from the farmers, the producers, to the processors, all the way to the consumers.
Because you're right, it's more than just providing the biofortified seeds, the crops. They also have to get to the people once they're grown and processed. And I'm sure that takes a lot of work too.
It does, in fact. And HarvestPlus has made it its mission to work along the value chain, all the way from the testing and release after breeding research has ended, to the seed multipliers, to the farmers that grow the crops. Then from there, they get aggregated and retailed to processors. And from the processors, it needs strategies, for example, on branding or on information on the high nutritious content, so that the consumer base can accept and buy those crops and feel confident that they have better nutrition in their diet, as with the crops that they have consumed before.
HarvestPlus was selected as the grand prize winner for the development specifically of this nutrient-dense porages, which are used in, if I understand correctly, the school feeding programs in Zambia. First of all, I guess the nutrient-dense porages are one of those models that you guys have then developed and found a way to take those biofortified crops and make them delicious and acceptable by the Zambian people, correct?
Yes. We have started working in Zambia already in 2004 with a breeding program for vitamin A maize. And then we opened our own office in 2010.
Okay.
And then already in 2013, we had varieties of vitamin A maize released and in the market, and we could start on the commercialization, working towards the processors. So Zambia really has been a pioneer for vitamin A maize and also for testing in schools already, because HarvestPlus Zambia saw the potential that if we use school feeding, school meals programs as a strategic mechanism to reach the people who are growing up and need micronutrients for their health and well-being, we could directly address those children.
How long have you guys been working with the school meals program in Zambia?
We usually work together with partners. And when we saw the potential, we had a cooperation with the World Food Program.
Right.
And my colleague, Emily Mwale, in Zambia, she introduced the vitamin A maize in 10 provinces. And from there, she began moving into the schools and testing. Now, this was done on a scale as a pilot, basically.
Sure.
We tested acceptance. We asked the pupils and the parents to test the texture, the odor, the taste. We asked the school kitchens to test the handling, the shelf life, basically how to handle the biofortified crops when preparing meals for school children. And then we had to make sure in parallel that we also show that it has the nutritional impact is there and it has an impact on health and well-being. So again, we cooperated with partners, and there were several publications done on how this could happen and how this could be proved. So, for example, the University of Wisconsin-Madison did a research where they showed that if you distribute the biofortified, the vitamin A maize to school children over a period of 6 months, every day, 6 days a week, you could show that the body stores of vitamin A get replenished. And this would show by functional indicators, practically, by researching the retina, the dark adaptation of eyesight, and that would be an indicator that vitamin A was being restored in the body. So based on this, we could prove there is an impact. And based on this, we can also now, when we do the product development, we can do nutritional testing for the products. And then we can calculate based on those learnings if there will be an impact on health.
What plans does the HarvestPlus program have for the grand prize money, which is $250,000?
We would like to use the grand prize money to develop food products that are specifically tailored for the school meals program, that processors can then eventually bid to the school meals program as locally produced ingredients. One reason why we think money can contribute to the process is that we are not using a regular market demand approach. Mm-hmm. We want to de-risk those companies and produce first a prototype. Then we want to take the prototype to the schools for an initial testing and then produce a first product line. Basically, this is like a consumer-oriented testing that will take place. And then we will have the means to really do product nutrition testing. We can do shelf life testing. We can implement a branding strategy, and we can also do some market research so that in the end, we will have more information beyond the school meals program of whether this is a product that can be commercialized further on. So at the end of the project, we have a sustainability phase where we want to develop a 5-year plan to see what target groups additional to school feeding programs we can address. Yeah. And we want to work with local processors to target those other consumer groups. Porridge products are actually a household product that is part of the everyday diet of a lot of consumers, not only in rural areas, but also in urban areas. Okay. So we believe that we can reach a lot of people. And we also, by reaching people also in urban areas and consumers, we can create a kind of virtuous cycle. We will look at the economic added value, so the revenues that go back to the farmers. The farmers have new economic opportunities to sell their crops. And then at the same time, we look at the nutrition added value that can reach the target groups. And by urban consumers also interested or increasingly interested in our product, we can kick off that virtuous cycle to benefit the farmers, produce more, have the supply to the processors, and the processors will see the demand increasing continuously as well. So basically, we want to use the school feeding as mechanism to kick off a pipeline of products that can reach the market in the long run.
And that makes a lot of sense. And it sounds like a really good approach. I can see why you guys won the grand prize. And you kind of talked about this already, but what are you hoping to accomplish in the next 10 years or so?
So for Zambia, we really want to have biofortified food products that reach the shelves in the supermarket, so to say.
Yeah.
We would like to place them with different target groups. This can be, for example, in the health sector, hospitals that need nutritious foods. This can be also the regular food market. We have the objective to mainstream the biofortified crops even more than before into the breeding programs, so that nutrition becomes as important as yield, basically, in breeding programs. We would also like to include the private sector more, because we believe the private sector is instrumental, develop the value chains, and therefore we advocate for healthy, delicious foods in the private sector. HarvestPlus as a program has the overall goal to reach 1 billion consumers by 2030 and thereby contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals. And end of 2023, we have reached already 100 million consumers. Those consumers are to a large part farmers and their households, and to a large part people in rural areas that really need the micronutrients. Right. But it goes beyond that, and we have already started commercializing into the market.
100 million already. That's really impressive. It's a very big goal, but you're obviously well on your way. So congratulations on that. And yeah, just thank you for taking the time to talk to us today, Katharina. It's been a pleasure learning more about HarvestPlus and the work that you guys are doing. And we look forward to hearing more about it at the IFT First event this summer in Chicago. Thank you.
Katharina Diehl, scaling specialist in the HarvestPlus section of the International Food Policy Research Institute, has been working on sustainability-oriented innovations in agriculture for more than a decade. Learn more about HarvestPlus and other Global Food System Challenge winners in the May issue of Food Technology. We heard earlier in Emily Little's conversation with Anuradha Prakash how food science programs are evolving to be more competitive. Those efforts will be even more important in coming years as universities face a looming enrollment crisis. Thanks in part to a crash in birth rates during the Great Recession, U.S. colleges and universities are looking down an enrollment cliff beginning in 2025, when the number of 18-year-olds is projected to decrease by 15% over the next 4 years. That translates to as many as 500,000 fewer students entering higher education. In this month's dialogue essay in Food Technology magazine, University of Missouri Vice Chancellor Chris Daubert notes that this demographic crunch could present significant challenges for the food sciences, which are already struggling to fill the demand pipeline for new talent. Chris and I recently caught up to discuss how a combination of demographic trends and the public's disconnect from food production is contributing to the pipeline challenge, and how industry and academia could better support interest in the profession. Well, Chris, welcome to the Omnivore podcast.
I'm delighted to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
So in your food tech article, you talk about going and visiting the Hershey chocolate plant as a kid. What was it about it that grabbed you, and how do you think that early exposure to food production impacted your career path?
What I can still remember is driving through the town of Hershey and smelling the chocolate. For those of you that have been in that town, you know what I'm talking about. And through the main street of Hershey, the street lamps have little Hershey's Kisses. They're made of Hershey's Kisses. And so it was kind of a special treat. So many of my friends, their families, their parents, their grandparents were employed by that company. And it meant opportunities for them. It meant meaningful employment for the community. Hershey was really special to that community and meant so much to the people of the area, so much about the economic development for the area, for the region. And so that's what I remember growing up.
In the dialogue essay, you talk about some concerning trends in STEM education and the implications on workforce shortages. So frame a little bit the significance of the talent pipeline challenge that's facing food science and the food industry at large.
Just so that everyone kind of has a contextual understanding in this question, the demographics of the students that will be matriculating into food science programs all across the country you look at the census results and you can just look at the demographics, the numbers of students that are coming of age is diminishing. And lots of individuals across higher education refer to this as the demographic cliff, the looming student cliff. And so in the next few years, the numbers of 18 to year old students, that's going to diminish and decline. And that means that all programs catering to education and training for that population, we're all going to be competing with each other a little bit more than we have in the past. And so that's going to make that competition, it's going to be demanding, it's going to be challenging. And so we already see some challenges in drawing and attracting students into food science and food technology and engineering programs. That challenge is going to get a little tougher in the years ahead. It's up to everyone, and I make a plea in the article that everyone that is familiar with food science, technology, and engineering, everyone, all the food companies out there, do what you can to talk about the great career opportunities in this industry, in making sure that everyone on this planet has access to food.
What are some of the implications of that pipeline shortage? We're facing a lot of systemic strains on the food system, so the need for that talent has never been greater. Where do you see some of this playing out?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I don't have that crystal ball, but over the years, you've seen other programs start to fill positions that at one time would employ food scientists just because there's not necessarily enough of them. And that means maybe the expertise may not be available to the industry. The industry does a nice job, a fine job in preparing and training individuals with their expertise, but that's a role that food science programs traditionally have played. And so I just think that if we're not filling that pipeline with food science and students and technology and engineering students that have that foundation, that maybe there's going to be a gap in creativity and innovation across the industry, and could challenge our industry to remain viable as we move forward.
So, the lack of awareness about food science as a discipline among high school students in particular is alarming. But, some people would say that to make a real impact, we need to even go earlier up and make more of an emphasis in the, all the way through K through 12. Where do you think that the priorities could or should be in order to generate some of that excitement and get kids more interested in the food sciences, long before they're ever applying into college?
Certainly, the decline of rural America, the diminishing numbers of people living in rural communities is a challenge, because at one time, people used to have great familiarity with agriculture. They would know where their food was coming from. And the fact now that some people think that milk comes from a grocery store is astounding to me. But every opportunity at every age that we can to take our students to a farm, to help them understand how we take something that's been produced and transform it and process it until it arrives at that grocery store, that whole food system needs to be better explained to all students. But I'm going to take this even a step further. If we think about the policymakers, those that influence decisions, our legislators, at one time in our local governments, it could be suggested, likely so, that 7 or 8 out of every 10 legislator was from a rural community, had a good understanding about agriculture. And today, that number is flipped, where it may be 1 to 2 politicians are knowledgeable about agriculture. And these are the decision makers that direct and support flow of funds and can create programs that directly impact and influence how food is delivered to our communities.
They also have a big voice in determining how food and the food system is being discussed. They control a lot of the discourse that people are absorbing too.
Yeah, so again, I think it's important. We oftentimes think about K through 12 education to draw students into food science programs. And again, I strongly support those efforts, those actions, those activities. But I also think that educating the influencers, others in positions of influence and affluence, by the way, is important.
When we talk about the food sciences, that encompasses a wide range of STEM fields and disciplines. Are there opportunities in better communicating the interdisciplinary nature of food science in order to generate excitement, in order to attract students that maybe have more diverse interests or backgrounds?
I believe that there is. I've been in an administrative role in higher education for pushing 20 years now. One of the things that I've noticed here at the University of Missouri is that we have students, for example, that might have an interest in chemistry. They might not have an understanding that agriculture and food science involves a lot of chemistry, but they have an interest in chemistry. Well, we can package what we are capable of delivering in food science and food chemistry. I think there's just a lack of awareness in how many disciplines food science actually does embrace. So this is a true story, Bill. We're working hard within programs here that when students, for example, have an interest in business, well, we know who those students are, and we're introducing them to agricultural business programs. They may not know that that exists within the college I have the privilege of leading. I already talked about chemistry. Well, we have biochemistry and food chemistry in food science. You have an interest in engineering and technology? Well, let me talk to you about ag systems technology, food engineering, and food science, food technology. So we do have an opportunity to make sure that students are better informed to the great opportunities and career opportunities that exist in the food industry.
You call for the industry to play an even bigger role in hiring graduates with food science credentials. How can this integration between academia and industry be capitalized on to help with these challenges?
So that's a great question. I'm not sure I have the perfect response. I just want our companies to think about hiring food science for food science type of opportunities. The more that we can say our food science students are being drafted and recruited into these great careers and opportunities, that allows us to convey to the students that we are recruiting and their parents that, look, here's a meaningful job, and look at the success that students have in our food science programs across the country. So every opportunity that our food companies can partner with their regional, their local food science programs, maybe through our sections and the divisions of IFT, that would be a great opportunity for us to further promote and to grow food science programs.
Chris Daubert is Vice Chancellor and Dean of the College of Agriculture, Food, and Natural Resources at the University of Missouri and the President-Elect of IFT for the 2024-2025 program year. You can read more of his thoughts on the talent pipeline in the May issue of Food Technology, and IFT members can participate in an ongoing discussion on the topic through our member forum, IFT Connect.
Thank you to this episode's sponsor, IFT's Career Center. Reach IFT's network of qualified job applicants by posting a position in our online career center. Don't miss this opportunity to attract the qualified science of food professionals your organization needs to carry out its mission. Visit ift.org/career center to learn more.
And that wraps up this episode of Omnivore. Thanks again to all our guests and my colleagues at Food Technology. Omnivore is produced and distributed by the Institute of Food Technologists. If you enjoyed today's show and want to learn more about Food Technology Magazine or how to join the conversation by becoming an IFT member, visit ift.org/membership. For more in-depth discussion about innovation in the science of food, check out IFT's other podcast, Side Dish, on the News and Publications page of ift.org. If you have comments or suggestions for future shows, just send us an email. The address is editors@ift.org. For the entire team at Food Technology and IFT, I'm Bill McDowell. Thanks for listening, and join us again for our next episode. This is Omnivore.